Hi everybody, today I'm working on my own Mini again. I took it to the track over the weekend and had a little bit of a problem. Coming down the front straight on the second day of the weekend, I had an immediate loss of power. Check engine light came on and the car ran like it was in limp mode. Then I got a big puff of smoke, so I had to get towed back in with the support vehicle at the track. So at the track I had a lot of time on my hands, I couldn't go back out anymore, so I took the spark plugs out to try to see what was going on, and one of the plugs looked like this. The top of the plug is basically missing and it looks like it's melted. The suspicion was exhaust gas temperatures got hot enough and it caused some melting due to pre-detonation, where the fuel air mixture actually explodes before the spark timing and is propelling the exhaust mixture down while the piston is trying to go up, and that causes some significantly increased temperatures and can do stuff like this. So that's what we thought was happening when at the track. I took the car home, and last night I took off the cylinder head. It took me about an hour and a half to do that. Let me just show you real quick how I did that. So first, of course, take the valve cover off, remove the cam sprocket. Oh, before that, you need to lift up and support the engine and take off the engine mount bracket. This one right here. I already know that I'm going to need at the very least a new cylinder head, so I didn't really care about timing, so I took that off. Then I removed the fuel rail, these guys here, the timing chain guide rails. Exhaust manifold is really straightforward. Just pull the bolts and rest it back there. On the intake manifold there's studs, and you have to remove the nuts. I believe there's 5 of them. And when you try to pull it back, it's actually going to hit, and it won't be able to clear the studs on the cylinder head. After you loosen up the head bolts and pull upward a little bit, you'll gain sufficient clearance. What happens is the intake manifold here hits the top of the supercharger horn on this side and doesn't allow the bolts to come off. But if you keep pulling, eventually they'll pull back and you can just get enough clearance. Also, you may need to loosen or remove this clip on the bottom here where the bypass valve hose goes. That may be needed to get the access you need. And then don't forget to disconnect the temperature sensor wiring, this guy right here. And then there's 3 bolts for the thermostat housing and 1 bolt for the heater bypass hose. And once you've done that, you can go ahead and lift the cylinder head off, and this is what we found. So it's pretty much carnage in there. I found 2 valve seats, the valve heads here, were sitting in the bottom of the piston, and you can tell from the I don't know what this is called, burnishing. Obviously the piston was going up and down and bouncing these broken valves all on the inside of the combustion chamber here, and it did it to the plug as well, obviously. So something caused these 2 valves to break off, and then they were bouncing around and caused the damage that we can see. I talked to Jan from RMW. He's the builder of this performance head. I have a higher red line for this engine, 7,500 RPM red line, and under those conditions it's possible for a connecting rod to let loose on the bottom end, which would allow the piston to travel up too high and make contact with the valves, which are relatively brittle, and they would break off. So here's the cylinder and the piston. The piston is almost completely worn through, and the cylinder walls have some scoring on the sides here. If we bore this out Right now it's at 77 millimeter diameter. If we bore this out to 77.5, it may be possible to reuse this block. So I'll go ahead and take off the oil pan and try to get that piston out of there and check the condition of the bearing. Okay, so I got the car jacked up. I'm gonna assume that you guys are smart enough and know how to do a front end service, or you can watch my front end service video to see exactly what needs to be done. So I'll dig into it right now. And I'll apologize in advance for the mess here and the lack of professionalism. I've got a business trip in the morning, but I need to get this oil pan off and diagnose this problem before the end of today, so I can get this information over to Jan at RMW and get an idea of what parts I'm going to need, because I don't want this car to be sitting around broken for too long. We got track season coming up, and I want to get this car fixed so I don't miss too many track days. So quick and dirty today is the name of the game. So basically I'm just trying to get this oil pan off in the quickest fashion possible, and that way I can get up and loosen up the connecting rod bolts and pull this piston out of here and diagnose whether we have any connecting rod damage. Well, crankshaft damage actually. I'm trying to decide here whether I need to whether I can just clean up the scoring on this block, or whether if I need a new crankshaft also, it's going to be most likely cheaper just to get a whole new block, because I got a guy who can get me a pretty good deal on that. I want to pull the whole radiator housing forward just enough so that I can get the air conditioning compressor off, because the air conditioning compressor is attached to the front of the oil pan. Oh yeah, I need to pull the belt first. I'll just leave the belt there for now. Right now the priority is just to get that oil pan off. And of course the drain bolt decides to round off its heads on me, so I'm going to need a new drain bolt, but I'll use a easy out tool to get this off for now. I'm probably going to go ahead and just buy a new oil pan anyway, one of those Way Motorworks ones with the baffles, because that's might be a contributing cause to why the bottom end let loose, if we discover that that's what's the cause of this problem. Alright, while we're waiting for the oil to drain, I'll loosen up the compressor. 3 13mm bolts, 2 on the front here and then 1 on the bottom. I'll take the wiring off here before loosening the bottom bolt up all the way so it doesn't hang from it. Okay, the air conditioning compressor's off now. I'll put the oil bolt back in so it doesn't drip forever. Alright, next is these two 15mm, and then there's a whole bunch of 10mm. I'll do the 15s first. Use my breaker bar for this. Well, this is a good thing actually. I've been meaning to replace the rear main seal in this car anyway, so I guess this is one way to do it. We'll run out all these 10mm. There are a couple real long ones in the back here, and then the rest are the same size. And be ready to catch it before removing the last bolt, because it can be kind of heavy, obviously. Okay, that should be all of them except for this last one right here. And then just pry or tap to get it to come loose. Did I miss one? Oh, there's one more 15 up here. Okay. There's the oil pan. And we got a whole bunch of parts under here. Piston parts, and actually one of the oil jets looks like it came off as well. I don't see that third valve. Oh, there it is. This is the other exhaust valve. Here's piston number 1. I can't see anything just yet, so I'll go ahead and take those cap bolts off and see what we can see. And I'm kind of hoping that the end cap is all right. This looks pretty good to me, so I think the bottom end is probably good. I might be able to salvage this block. Let's go ahead and get that piston out. Hammer it on out through the top. Okay, piston's out. So here's the piston. I'd say that bearing looks pretty decent. One thing I did note is the bushing for the wrist pin is a bit loose. The piston, you can see there's some damage here. It's actually cracked here where it was slapping against the walls, and that may be because of this bushing. But I'll have to send some photos off to Jan and see what his thoughts are. Alright, we're back. I talked to Jan from RMW. So Jan's recommendation is to put some RMW pistons and RMW connecting rods and use race bearings to put everything back together. And this will allow the bottom end of the motor to better sustain high RPMs. You could hit higher RPMs once in a while, you know, for street duty, but when you're on the track where you get sustained high RPMs, Jan said that you really need to have a stiffer bottom end to be able to accommodate that. There's minor scoring on the walls of the cylinder. Jan said that we can bore this out to 77.5 millimeter diameter. That's a 0.5 millimeter larger than stock, and that should get rid of the scoring here and allow us to reuse this old block. Jan also recommended that I replace the oil pump, so I'll be doing that as well. And I should check the fuel pressure and the fuel injectors to make sure we've got good fuel, because really the root cause of this problem does appear to be a lean running condition. I suspect that it may have something to do with the poor gap on the plugs, and I may also be discovering that fuel pressure was low. So I'll take care of that before I get this car back out on the track. One thing I did notice is the oil jet, which squirts oil into the bottom of each piston. On cylinder number 4, the oil jet broke off and it was in the bottom of the oil pan for some reason. I don't know if this happened as a part of this incident or if it's been down there for a while, but I'll be replacing that, obviously. There is some good news. The other valves on the cylinder head, as well as the valve train itself, appear to be in good shape. And I'll be getting a new RMW head just like this one, ported and polished. I'll be taking all this stuff apart, sending it down to Jan, and he'll be reusing the parts that we can reuse. So I'm leaving on a business trip tomorrow, and I want to make sure that all this stuff is available so that we can get these parts going. So I'm going to disassemble this cylinder head and send all the parts down. Alright, we got the rocker arms off. Now we'll get these valve springs and valves out of here. So we'll use the same valve tool we used on that engine replacement job. Using a magnet tool to pull the keepers out, and our fancy valve compressor tool. Okay, that's all the good valves. There we go. Looks like we can get the keepers and the springs off the bad valves as well, just by hammering them just a bit. So that just broke clean off. Well, that doesn't look good. Okay, so I'll be packing up and sending all 16 valves, 16 springs, 32 keepers. So that's all for now. I'll send all this stuff down to Jan so he can build me a new cylinder head. I've got a business trip to go to, but when I get back, we'll pull this short block, send it off to the machine shop to get bored out, and at the same time I'll be waiting for parts to come from Jan. That'll be the connecting rods, the pistons, race bearings, and a new performance head. So thanks for watching, and bye-bye.